Hello and welcome back to another video in the Law of Human Nature series. In this video, we are going into the next chapter finally and going over the law of narcissism, taking ourselves from self-absorption to empathy. Let's get to it. If Robert Greene wrote The Laws of Human Nature for Instagram, chapter 2 would have just been called Put the Front Camera Down. The law of narcissism reminds us that self-love is universal, but when we have unchecked narcissism, it becomes a trap. It isolates us from others and blinds us to reality. Green's challenge isn't to deny self-love, but to transform it into empathy, to redirect the energy we waste staring at our own reflection outward and toward actually seeing other people. And in uncertain times, politically, personally, professionally, empathy is not a luxury. It's survival. As Paul puts it in Philippians 2:4, let each of you look not only to his own interests, but also to the interests of others. Green begins with a tough pill. We all start as narcissists. Babies scream for attention, and adults, well, it's the same behavior, it's just, you didn't get my coffee order right. The task of maturity is recognizing that everyone else has their own needs, fears, and desires. You gain more by seeing others clearly than by being trapped in your own echo chamber, right? Everybody takes a shit. Everybody wants to survive. Everybody wants to live under a safe house that doesn't have leaks, that has a roof that doesn't leak, etc. And that's having empathy for one another, understanding that we each have that. Key truths that Green lays out. Narcissism is a spectrum. Too much equals toxic absorption, and too little equals neglect, right? If you love yourself too much, if you're just thinking about yourself and not caring about the needs of others, then people will start to see you as simply the person you're acting as, right? If you continue to take someone's food at work or take someone's drink that's in the fridge at work and there's clearly a note on there that says don't take this, but you continue to, and they know you're taking it, then that's a little too much self-love, right? But the person who's letting you take it, right, they're not saying anything. They're neglecting themselves. They're not sticking up for themselves. They don't have enough self-love. The next truth is that deep narcissism blinds. Leaders lose touch and paranoia festers, and then collapse follows, right? Because if leaders lose touch, let's say it's a political leader, and they lose touch with reality, they lose touch with the people that actually keep them in power, who choose to let them have that power. They lose touch with them, and then maybe it becomes a point of totalitarianism, and paranoia starts to fester within the people, right? The masses, the everyday you and me, next door neighbor. But paranoia also festers in the leader because they're thinking only about themselves and thinking only about their survival and how they can win versus how everyone can win. And then it probably leads to something that nobody wants, and then you get a collapse of that nation, country, or even if it's a town, right? That could happen in a town. It could happen in a household. Simple as that. The next truth is that the goal of all of this is transformation, because self-love isn't the enemy, right? Narcissism is a spectrum, so it's not the enemy. It's just raw energy that can be flipped outward into empathy. Right? And you think of yourself and you're like, but I want this cookie. I want this right now. Okay, but what if they want it, right? What's going to happen if I give them this cookie? Well, let's think. I'm going to go home and I'm probably going to eat some good food. I'm not going to die. I'm not going to die if I don't have this cookie. I'm going to give this cookie to my friend simply because I want to. And watch what happens. Did we just become friends? And in the Gen Z mindset, it's basically saying, yeah, you're the main character, But the story has other characters too, and they matter to the plot, right? Not everybody's an NPC. And that leads us into the cost of narcissism. Unchecked narcissism always charges interest, just like a bank loan, just like a credit card loan that you don't make payments on, right? Something in the background is making it harder for you to get out of the hole you're digging yourself and putting yourself in. With leadership, like narcissistic leaders, they ignore feedback. You think of a dictator. They surround themselves with yes men. They surround themselves with generals, advisors who just agree with everything they say. And eventually it implodes because those generals could be plotting behind the scenes to overthrow this dictator because they're tired of the shit. And maybe they just want to be dictator because nobody's needs are getting met. It's just monstrosity everywhere. And you can look at history books. You can look at reality TV. You can look at your group project leader who just ghosts at the deadline, right? And in relationships, self-absorption kills trust. Partners get tired of being an audience instead of equals. And that is very true. If you are doing anything, if you're extremely good at something and you have a dream, let's start with that. If you have a dream, but then now you also have a partner, you have to figure out and work as a team to bring each other up, spend time with each other, but also respect each other enough to understand each other's behaviors. If I don't get this amount of time to work towards my dream, I'm not going to really enjoy spending time with you. But if I spend too much time working at my dream and not a lot of time with you, then I understand that you are not going to really care about my dream because you're just an audience. And instead of being my partner, I'm just seeing you as a fan, right? And that's hypothetical, but that's how it would go in a relationship. Doesn't matter what you do. If you have a dream, just bring your dream with your partner's dream. And with uncertainty, right? Narcissists misread reality because they think the world revolves around them. Spoiler, it doesn't. And you can spot a narcissist because when they're talking to you or when they're speaking about things or when they bring something up, it seems like maybe with their tone of voice or maybe with something, they're in this fantasy. Like they're acting in a way that seems like they're in a movie. Low key, we are in a movie. But what I'm getting at is like it's not grounded. It's very, I don't know. I'm speaking from my own experience in the aspect of I've been in this state. I've been in this state of mind to where I thought the world was, somewhere revolving around me, and it was very, it was weird. It was a weird time of my life. But then being able to ground myself, having that relationship with Christ brought me out of it, but it was a journey, and now I know. Now I can speak on it. And it's not just I guess it is my opinion, but it's experienced wisdom. And on that note, it's the higher a narcissist climbs, Green says the bigger the fall, which is basically Proverbs 16:18 in real life. Pride goes before destruction, a haughty spirit before a fall. Right? If you're there, if you're like, I'm all high and mighty, I don't need to listen to anybody, then you're at the bottom and you have no idea why you're there because you don't want to accept that it was your fault. And that is the mindset of a narcissist. Transforming self-love into empathy. Green's fix isn't suppression, it's redirection, the path. Active listening. Stop rehearsing your response. Actually listen to people. Actually hear them. And I'm guilty of this. Sometimes I'll just be talking to myself and I used to really be bad at this. I never really stood up to myself. And so if I was by myself, I'd just be thinking, like I should have said this. And then I have a whole conversation about how I wanted the conversation to go because I shoved it down. I shoved what I actually wanted to say down instead of having self-love and speaking my mind to stand up for myself. And turning it around though, and you actually listen to people instead of just responding, then you can actually have a conversation and have radical curiosity. This helped me a lot. Treat others like a mystery book, like you have no idea what they're actually trying to say. Keep in mind that literally every time you are coming up with a judgment on what they're saying, we always must remind ourselves that we're judging from our point of view. We are projecting every inner fear, insecurity, or every confidence, every success we've had, every failure we've had in life. We are putting that onto the answer, or however we're judging the person whenever they're speaking to us. And that's why we need to treat others like mysteries to decode, and that they're not mirrors, but a reflection, right? They are our reflection. We're reflecting everything within us. Every time we hear them speak, and in the milliseconds, the seconds that our brains are thinking of something to react, it's our survival instinct. It's our we want to be cool instinct. We're conjuring up subconsciously every success, every defeat we've had, and we're judging how we want to respond. But we have to and we're back. Where was I? And that brings us into imaginative projection. We see the world from their shoes, not just the feed, not just the social media feed, right? We see their profiles, we see how they seem on platforms, but then we also see what it looks like from all these other influencers or just videos, shows, etc., showing our mind, showing our subconscious mind how people are through acting, right? Through acting in TV shows and movies, etc. Our mind is taking it in and saying, well, a person is like this. And think of how many shows and movies you've watched, right? That's what your brain is also processing every second. So we need to just pause and think, why would they say this to me? Or why would they be okay with sharing this with me? And if we don't know the answers, that is the trigger to knowing whether or not we need to sit back and just listen. Because if we don't have the answer come up when we ask ourselves, why are they, even if the answer comes up, you might not know, because an answer will always come up. That being said, sit back and just think, I might not know why they're saying this. And especially if somebody's being vulnerable with you, I always like to start off by saying, thank you for feeling comfortable enough to share this with me, because so on and so forth. Reframe your attention, right? When you catch yourself spiraling inward, redirect outward. Kind of like what I just said. That's the whole point. You catch yourself spiraling, like, okay. And I always ask myself, have I taken a deep breath yet? And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm listening to this person. Sometimes I'll just be like, what was that last thing you said? My mind is crazy. I really want to hear what you said. And think of all these things like clearing RAM on your phone, clearing up some space on your phone. Shut down the 20 background apps so that empathy, the real operating system, can actually run. And this is how we navigate uncertainty with empathy. Insecurity feeds narcissism. Protect me, validate me, reassure me. But empathy is the strategic move. In business, narcissists miss signals and empaths catch them, right? If your boss, let's say this, your boss is going to go chew out one of your coworkers, and you're thinking, okay, well, my coworker did do this, so does he might deserve it, right? But your boss doesn't see it that way. Your boss just is like, la da 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 da, rah 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 rah. Next time you do this, you're fired or you're getting demoted. But you see it as, all right, well, my boss could have approached in a different light and taken extreme ownership and said, okay, maybe I didn't make myself clear enough. I wanted this printed out this way because I already tried this way. But there was lack of communication between my boss and my coworker. And my coworker could have communicated better as well. But since my boss is pretty bad at taking accountability, he has a lot of narcissistic traits and not as much empathy. And ownership takes a lot of empathy because you're owning up to something that you don't want to deal with. None of us want to feel that sense of shame, because back in the day, again, there's a saber-toothed tiger over there. I have my tribe to keep me safe, and I don't want the shame, or else I'm going to get kicked out of the tribe. And that's happening every day subconsciously. And that's why it's hard to take ownership in situations like that. In politics, populists ignoring real needs collapse. A big civilization, a big nation, a big city, ignoring what's really happening, right? Let's say there's billionaires giving money to, I don't know, things like war and not helping out its own people. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but it ends up in collapse, and who knows why. But empathic leaders adapt, right? You have an empathic leader, and they adapt to the situation. You get JFK adapting to the situation of, I'm going to start poking holes in these secret societies and go from there. But we all see what happens when we have leaders who are empathic. MLK, JFK, the list goes on. And navigating uncertainty with empathy within your personal life, whether it's fear or change, empathy sustains trust. And we can just use our own individual selves for this example. When it comes to fear, having empathy for yourself and saying, look, I know you're scared, but facing fear makes you brave. It doesn't make the fear go away, but have empathy for yourself. And let's say you might be scared because what other people might think. Well, regardless of what other people might think of you, if you're uncertain about it, it's certain that somebody might get something out of it, even if it's yourself. And that way, you can trust yourself because you went along with a decision that you chose to do, and you can trust yourself because the outcome included some form of success. And when it becomes change, right, a change in life, sometimes, a lot of the times, we fear change. And it goes back to that whole saber-tooth analogy with the tribe and getting kicked out, and you don't have the protection of the tribe, and you're more susceptible to dying by a saber-toothed tiger. Have empathy for yourself in changing, right? I say right. I've said right so many times. Empathy sustains trust through change because you tell yourself that, hey, you've made it through all of these things in life. You've made it when some people have not. There's a 1 in a trillion chance that you're even alive right now because of all the car accidents you missed, all the times that you didn't slip and fall and break your neck, all the times that your parents protected you from maybe drowning or something like that, all the times that you missed death, or all the times you weren't even a thought. You're here. And then our ancestors, they were there, they survived, and now you're here. Have empathy for yourself because it sustains trust. And when you love yourself and you tell yourself it's okay, you've made it through this, that, and the third, and you go through, whether you succeeded or failed, you trusted yourself to move forward and take action. You didn't sit and rot in your room. You got up, you went to the gym, you went on a run, you read that book, you went and got a new job, you filled out your resume, you either succeeded or you failed. Either way, you moved through uncertainty. And Robert Greene is clear on this. Empathy is not soft. It's power. Seeing others better than they see themselves gives you influence, adaptability, and resilience. And here's the Gnostic Christ callback. Yeshua didn't just look at the surface of people. He read their hearts, their motives, their shadows. Empathy was his weapon. It wasn't flattery, and it wasn't dominance. And now we move into having confidence without becoming too narcissistic. And Robert Greene offers some anchors. First is have confidence from competence. Mastery replaces fragile validation and chasing. And what this means is that we each have something that we loved to do when we were a kid. And some of us honed in on those skills or were taught some skills, and it doesn't matter what that skill was. Mine, I've got a few. Mine is piano. I like to sing. I like to draw. I like to play guitar. I make music, and I love psychology. And I love Christ, right? I hold those things with competence. I'm competent in those fields. That is my lane. That is my lane. You know how people say stay in your lane? That's my lane. I'm not traveling outside of my lane, although I have in the past, and then I realized I would get insecure and not confident because I was going into fields, I was going into lanes that weren't mine. But staying in my lane gave me confidence, and I can move around people and say, you know what, I'm good. Like, that's good for you, but I am successful in realms of life that you are not, and you've never dreamed of, and that's okay, because everybody's different. Have confidence from connection. Empathy builds allies who reinforce trust, not just hype, right? Connect with people, make friends, understand why they might be the way they are, and understand that if some people just don't want to be around you or they don't invite you to things, the connection there is obviously a disconnect. And so you can move on with your life and have self-love and not overthink it, because it doesn't matter what Joe Blow said about Susie Goosey, right? Because you are you and they are them. And there's billions of other them. Billions of others thems. Obvious. You get the point. And having confidence from perspective. Recognize your place in the bigger story. Alignment is greater than ego. So sometimes we get so caught up in being really good at something, and it's like, well, I'm going to change the world. You're damn right you're going to change the world, and I truly believe that you're going to change the world. But remember, there's billions of worlds on this planet. What I mean by that is that I do not see the world the same way that you see the world. I don't even see the world the same way my wife sees the world. It's at the point to where you can use your skills. I can make this video to hopefully reach people who are interested in this or just are looking for change, and then it changes how they see reality, but it's still not the same way I see reality. But it still changed the world in some way, shape, or form. And I always pray that it's a positive change. And that being said, that brings alignment. You bring alignment with your skills, with whoever you believe in, with God, and with your inner self. Have peace, and you move forward. You accept, you surrender to peace. That is much more powerful than ego, because ego just walks into the gym and I'm relaxed, right? I am relaxed right now. I'll actually stay like this to prove to you that I'm relaxed in this video for the rest of the video. Confidence from self-acceptance. Know your flaws, right? If you've already owned them, nobody can weaponize them. Nobody can weaponize your flaws if you own them, right? I'm obviously relaxed. My lats are huge. So nobody's bigger than me. I'm not going to let anybody make fun of my lats. I have a big nose, right? I have a big nose. They say something about entrepreneurship and big noses. I don't know. That could just be a rumor. That being said, I own my nose, right? It runs in the family. So what? God made me a certain way. I love it. All right, so I got to force my arms down now because being relaxed makes my arms tired. And in modern terms, real confidence is walking into the room without needing everyone to like you or come up to you and talk to you the moment you walk in. In conclusion, there's a mirror and there's the window. Robert Greene's law of narcissism teaches that self-love is inevitable. The danger is when it consumes the whole view. The task isn't to smash the mirror, but to balance it with a window. By turning outward, with empathy, listening, perspective, we escape self-absorption and navigate uncertainty with steadier confidence. Empathy is the highest form of rationality, Greene says. In the New Testament, echoes in 1 John 4:12, if we love one another, God lives in us, and his love is perfected in us. So yes, love yourself, but don't stop there. Look outward. Read the room. Read the vibe of everyone. Listen before you speak, because confidence doesn't come from demanding attention. It comes from understanding the world around you. That's how you stop main charactering and start actually writing a story worth living. Thanks for watching. If you like the video, like and subscribe. It helps me out a lot. Leave a comment, give some feedback, and I'll catch you on the flip side.